Hey guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. I wanted to talk today about a friend of mine named Mike. I found out earlier this morning that Mike is dead. He committed suicide. And I wanted to share his story because I think it has a lot to do with MGTOW, the manosphere, and kind of what we men can be driven to. I met Mike when we were both working for a Fortune 500 company as network engineers, and he was recently divorced and lost custody of his children. So he was having to pay just about half of his income after taxes towards child support and alimony, and it was doable, but it was only because he was making a very, very good income. After layoffs, when I left the company and he left the company, he was making about 60 to 70%, I think is what he mentioned, of his previous salary. And when he went to court to try to get his child support and alimony adjusted down, they denied him. So he was still stuck paying the same amount, but now instead of being half of his income, it was closer to, I think, 70 or 80% of his income. He struggled through with that. He ended up having to sell his house to her. He got paid out for it, and the money that he got paid out, he used to pay the child support while he was trying to get his job back online to make the full amount that he was making. He, somewhere along the lines, and I don't remember every detail of the story, but I know he had to sell his vehicle because he couldn't afford the payments on it anymore. And after that, he lost that job. And so while he was trying to find a network engineering job, he ended up taking a job that was under the table so that he could say he was unemployed and try to keep more of his money because he was absolutely getting crushed at this point. Well, the state decided, and he wasn't making much, by the way. I mean, we're talking maybe $40,000 a year now, $50,000 a year. So child support would have been everything he made. So he went back to the courts to try to get it adjusted down again, now showing that he was unemployed, and they still denied him. And that he would basically just have them pile up in arrears until they were paid $1,800 a month after taxes. So he muddled on somehow, and I was traveling overseas at the time when every once in a while we'd text every couple of months just to touch base and see how he was doing. And he said at one point that he was so far in arrears they'd taken his driver's license and they were threatening to throw him in jail. And so he had gotten so fed up that he just said, go ahead, like throw me in jail. I can't afford this anymore. And again, this is over the course of 2 or 3 years. And I remember having a conversation with him one day before I left when we were still working at the other job. And he said, you know, when you date somebody and when you marry somebody, you don't think they're nuts. You don't know the capacity of how evil they are. And here's a guy that was what he thought was happily married until she cheated on him. She won all 3 kids in a custody battle, and now he just has to pay for her infidelity. And he's getting ground under the heels of government. And he said, you know, it reminds me of that movie, and I'll have to look it up. I'll put a clip in here, where it was one of the Goodfellas or Godfather, something like that, where they just said, you owe money? Fuck you, pay me. You owe this? Fuck you, pay me. This happened? Fuck you, pay me.
No matter what. Business bad? Fuck you, pay me. Oh, you had a fire? Fuck you, pay me. Place got hit by lightning, huh? Fuck you, pay me.
And he said it's exactly like that. At no point could he get his amount that he was responsible for adjusted downward. And on top of that, if he couldn't afford a payment, they take his license. Then he loses registration and insurance on his vehicle. Then they'll garnish his wages. They just killed him. They just literally killed him. So while I was traveling overseas, from my understanding, I talked to an acquaintance of mine, but a friend of his that he moved in with, a 48-year-old man moving in with a friend into his basement so he could afford to live. And it was driving a kind of a piece of shit used car just to get him from point A to point B. And he was just getting further and further arrears. They were going to throw him in jail. He said, go ahead and throw me in jail. And they said, no, we're just going to hold you accountable for all this. And it was just too much for him. So I guess while I was traveling overseas, he decided one night to get a prescription of something. I don't know if it was Oxycontin or a depressant or I don't know what it was. And get a bottle of alcohol and just drink himself to death. He was done. He tapped out. So apparently it's more important for, here you have a woman that cheated on a guy, and he loses custody of his kids, he loses all his income, and they will drive him into the ground to the point where he kills himself. And what I don't understand about this is, how is this any benefit to the children? So the mother gets her money, but the kids now get nothing. And you've got basically a really good guy that's completely, I mean, he's gone, he's dead. You ground him into the ground, you pushed him into the ground so much that he fucking killed himself. And this is where we are in society today, and that's acceptable. You know, when I watched the movie The Red Pill, you hear statistics of men committing suicide over losing their kids. And I don't have any children, so I can't, and my divorce, even after 10 years, was relatively sane, where we just walked away from each other. So I can't relate. But after seeing what he went through, and the frustration and the pain, I mean, every time she took him to court over the smallest thing, he had to represent himself because he couldn't afford a lawyer. But he had to pay her attorney fees. So she had no problems taking him to court over and over again over nothing, because he was paying for that. They fucked him. They fucked him. And there's a really good guy that in the course of 2 or 3 years, they took everything from him, including his life, and he just had nothing left. So if you guys are thinking about having a relationship and she's good and she's different and she's not like all the other girls, fuck you. That's not true, because no one, I mean, he and I joked about this. You never ever date and marry a psychopath. Who the fuck would do that? But they can turn into one, and she turned into I don't know. I can't. I don't have enough words to express how frustrated and sad and pissed off I am about this. Go MGTOW. Don't fucking get involved with these people, and don't subject yourself to this, because it can get so bad that you want the only out there is. And her response, again, this is according to my acquaintance, a friend of his, her response was she was pissed because now she no longer gets money. No remorse. No, I can't believe it got that bad. I wish I had adjusted things. No, fuck you. Pay me. And she has the only thing she's concerned about is she doesn't get any money anymore. That's what he was. He was an ATM machine until he ran out of cash. I'm out. Don't get married.